Today we have no sponsors because I am an existential threat to gay rights and all progress. So, of course, our wonderful fans have taken it upon themselves to write all of our sponsors and to have them can't not sponsor or not to support us. So we are. I'm very, I'll just say this: I'm very thankful to our members. Now's the time, and the reason I say that is to thank our wonderful members who support the show by becoming members, because it makes this show kind of bulletproof to stuff like this, even though it's painful and emotionally it just doesn't. It's just painful that people would do that. There it is. And the other thing is, like, you expect a little more of the sponsors in a way, but I get it. There is, it's just transactional for them. But I feel like I put so much into the good, our good partners, and it's kind of crazy when they just drop you like a bag of dirt one over some bullshit. But there you go. I want to.
On January 14th of this year, Ethan Klein, aka H3H3 of the H3 podcast, was given a prophetic warning by one Jordan B. Peterson after he decided to take down, aka unlist, his podcast with Jordan Peterson, because he now discovered that Jordan Peterson is an evil white racist, evil white gayophobe, homophobe, transisophobe, racist, homophobe, evil white racist. And that warning read as followed. Also, I should warn you, those who engage in cancel culture generally live to regret it. I'm not going to come after you, except politely in this Twitter stream. Haha, Jordan Peterson calls it a Twitter stream. But the chickens will definitely come home to roost. You'll be held to higher and higher and soon impossible to maintain ethical standards by the very mob you currently wish to please. Then you will make a mistake and they will devour you with glee. Please take this warning seriously. I liked you. And wouldn't you know it, a story that I nearly missed because of my trip to Texas, Ethan Klein made this prophecy be fulfilled. Ethan Klein got canceled by the gays, or as Bill Maher likes to call it, the gay mafia, for his jokes about tops and bottoms in terms of the gays. But before we get into this golden nugget of philosophical prophecy coming to fruition, we gotta talk about gold and noble gold transition. With all the crazy things going on in the world right now, it's no wonder you're worried about your future. Nobody knows what's gonna happen, and again, that creates panic. This is why you need to hedge against disaster and bet on the certainty of precious metal. Precious metals have been proven to be a hedge against inflation and financial turmoil, and this month, Noble Gold is offering, if you sign up for a qualified IRA, an American Virtue 3-ounce silver coin if you sign up for that qualifying IRA. You guys know what to do. Call them at 877-646-5347 or visit noblegoldinvestments.com. So Ethan Klein recently on his podcast, because he covers trashy YouTube celebrity stuff, was doing a story on James Charles. And this story somehow involves something related to diapers. Honestly, I try not to look into it too much because I'm not really into that YouTube trash. I'm into a different kind of YouTube trash because that's the kind of guy that I am. And during the course of the story, Ethan Klein was making jokes about James Charles and his effeminate appearance, and how that obviously led James Charles to be a bottom in the relationship in terms of gay relationships, aka the receiver or the catcher, and definitely not the pitcher. This caused people in his live audience to become upset with him. They were talking about how Ethan was stereotyping, and this ultimately culminated with Ethan Klein taking a phone call from a guy called Matt, not Matt from Tinder, although it could be Matt from Tinder. We all know how Jack Murphy likes to get down. And he tried to lecture Ethan on how his stereotyping was no good, not good at all, and not good for the gays community.
Okay, Matt, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the tangent there. So what have I got wrong about top-bottom stereotypes there?
Yeah, so like, and this is kind of an ongoing thing. It just kind of, it made me really want to call in today because like with you guys, just like when you guys were all, you poor straight males all, you a group of poor straight males having to discuss such a topic. I mean, it's okay. I mean, you're not. It's okay. I just wanted to get involved because, like, I know there's a lot of times it comes up where you bring in, where you often bring up people that you feel inclined. I know often you feel inclined to describe someone where you think they might be a bottom.
Now, here's the thing. I'm not going to condemn Ethan Klein for his jokes. I'm not going to come after him for his jokes because I'm not a part of the woke mafia. I'm not offended by the things that Ethan Klein said. Even if I were a member of the LGBTQ XXIIP XYJJ community, I would definitely not be one of those cringe people who just looks for reasons to be offended. But it is very interesting that we see through Ethan Klein a common feature among leftists who go after other people for not being woke enough. A common theme, a common through line that people who participate in cancel culture often are dealing with internally, and it's just represented by everything Ethan says about this topic. Because for those of you who don't know, for those of you who need this explained to you out there on the internet.com, while stereotypes are a lot of times truer than people who condemn them believe them to be true, in reality, they're not always true. So the idea that the gays are all effeminate dudes, and the more effeminate dudes is the girl in the relationship, I keep thinking of this movie or TV show. Somebody let me know down in the comments down below, where some guy with a heavy New York Italian accent was looking at two gays, and he was like, which one of you is the girl? And usually people base that on the person who's either smaller or more effeminate or whatever.
And I think that that's often a misconception, that like bottoms may be passive or the
I just mean that he likes
partner.
I just mean that he likes to take it up the butt.
Correct. But how can you know that about someone?
Well, that was just a theory about because he wears diapers. It's just a theory.
No, I'm moving on from James Charles. I'm sorry. I don't care about James Charles that much. Well, he should be in jail. What maybe on that one, yeah. What do I care about James Charles?
Okay, so
I'm talking about sometimes. Like, I think I don't keep a running tally. I love you. I'm not keeping track of everything you do wrong. I'm not Keemstar. I don't have a document on my desk.
Appreciate that.
But there have been times. I think one that comes to mind was maybe Jordan Peterson, that you described as probably being someone that would be a bottom. That's the only one I can think of off the top of my head. But like I've heard you at times maybe say like, oh, this is someone that might be a bottom.
But here's the thing. You should know, at least intuitively, that tends not to actually be the case. And typically, the opposite is what tends to bear fruit. A perfect example of this are feminists. Now, I have read in books that if you were to date feminists in college, that these women who don't want to be controlled by any man, when you get behind the bedroom door, when you get under the sheets, are not interested in taking a dominant position. Now, again, this is just a stereotype. Again, this is just a rumor that I heard from a book. Did I say I read it in a book or I heard it as a rumor? Whichever. I heard it in the rumor of a book about feminist girls that happens to be 100% true from my experience reading books and hearing rumors. I feel like this segment is going to go completely off the rails, even though I have a really good point to bring you guys.
Do you find it offensive if I say, by being like, oh, he's probably a bottom? Is that the problem?
Absolutely.
It's offensive.
Because it is, saying someone's a bottom in particular, I think, is probably a bit troublesome because it kind of it starts to kind of gay men already. You have to deal with certain assumptions about femininity and masculinity. I'm sure you understand that. I'm not going to throw out the whole.
Okay, we're bringing it back now and getting centered. Now, the same thing, if I talk to people who happen to be gays and this topic comes up, tends to hold true. I know a guy, his name is Mike Harlow. He was hosting the event at Better Discourse 4, and Mikey has talked to me about his dating life. And one of the things that he's told me, and I hate to reveal stuff that Mike Harlow's told me on the internet.com because it is not ready and not primed for your baby ears. I know that this is definitely a Christian show, that those Republicans, despite the fact that they hit the gym, despite the fact that they portray this alpha energy, despite the fact that they portray themselves as not down with the general gay culture, when you get behind closed doors, when you get under the sheets, as Mike Harlow has heard in books and rumors, because obviously Christian show, Christian broadcast, and Mike Harlow, super Christian for sure, they tend to be the complete opposite. They tend to be more passive in that domain, if you catch my drift. So Ethan Klein was receiving a call from somebody on the internet.com that was trying to explain to him that his stereotypes about this tend not to hold true, and I actually tend to agree from what I've heard and what I've experienced with the ladies, specifically the feminist ladies. Oh wait, did I say experience? I meant what I read in books or heard in rumors. What I saw on a TV show. A documentary, actually. I saw it in a documentary. memory. I promise you. That's where I heard it. Christian show.
I think it's more. I think it's more okay. I think the ascription of like throwing out that someone is just a bottom, like because it just ascribing certain roles to people. That's all I'm asking for is just be a little more conscious of it. I know you don't mean any harm. You never mean any harm.
I'm harmless.
You know your humor gets away from you.
Let me ask you this, Matt. Is it possible? So would you consider yourself a top or a bottom, or you don't do that the labels?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I knew you were going to go there, and I mean this with all peace and love and with respect, Ethan. It's none of your business.
Oh, sure. I mean, you can. That's a totally valid response. You don't have to answer the question
because from there.
But you have a preference, one way or the other.
Yeah, but that's another dangerous assumption too. Because
Can I
a
guess?
lot of gay men don't have a preference.
Can I guess?
So that's another dangerous stereotype. What's that?
Can I guess what is your preference?
You can.
Will you tell me if it's right, if I guess right?
No.
Well, but now I'm playing clips of you where the left is getting offended by Ethan. He's joking around with this guy who, according to many people on the left, is trying to bring up a very, very serious point. Even though I just explained to you that point at hand and Ethan doesn't appear to be getting it here, it's totally fine because this is a comedy show and Ethan is trying to make it more entertaining. And in fact, Ethan Klein's producer actually got angry because they were getting so much backlash. So at the end of the program, he told them to calm down and stop being oversensitive.
For being homophobic to the caller?
He admitted.
Yeah, of course you were right. And honestly, just so over these fucking people. Shut the fuck up! Shut up! No, because again, it's the context. This is a loose comedy show, okay? Like, it's Ethan whole persona is being a bit of a goof. That's why you guys watch. Like, it just, oh my god. So you're stunlocking me now, way more than you're getting stunlocked. Like, I'm so fucking frustrated with these people.
Get the fuck out!
So wait, what was I?
You should never ask questions. You should treat them as pariahs. You should and always tiptoe around everything, especially in the context of a comedy show. You should never ask questions, and you should never joke around and treat people as equals.
But the thing is, this is the audience that you guys have cultivated. This is what you've gone for. When you took down that interview of Jordan Peterson, what you said is that a mob of people coming after you and forcing you to apologize, forcing you to retract on your previous work was something that was effective against you. So what Ethan was dealing with was the audience that he cultivated. And in that regard, I feel no sympathy for him. If you go after people who tell jokes, if you go after people who espouse views that you don't like, then when you tell jokes and people consider them views that they don't like, you are reaping what you have in fact sown yourself. Setting all of that aside, setting the level 1 take that you get from every other content creator, along with my additional information gathering about feminist girls and the opposites and the implication that the same thing might be true for the gays men's, we need to go one step further than your basic analysis. We need to talk about what Ethan actually thinks of the gays depending on their position, because that is something that is presented over and over again by him, and it's hard to ignore. Again, this is a guy who caters to the woke. This is a guy who attacks everybody for little bits and hints of what he believes to be transphobia or homophobia, but in reality, what he's saying is more outrageous, if you take it at face value, than the things that the right wing have said in 90% of the cases that he's targeted them for.
Appreciate that.
But there have been times. I think one that comes to mind was maybe Jordan Peterson that you described as probably being someone that would be a bottom. That's the only one I can think of off the top of my head.
So early on, Ethan was making the point that James Charles would be the receiver based on the fact that he presents himself in such a feminine way. I mean, James Charles is so effeminate, I believe he makes his money or made his money in the past before he got canceled on the selling of makeup. But one of the interesting things that's brought up from the caller in this video is the fact that Ethan often labels people that he doesn't like to be bottoms. And a perfect example of this is Jordan Peterson, where he says he's all alpha out there in the streets, which, by the way, if you get that impression from Jordan Peterson, one of the more soft-spoken individuals out there in the world, the guy's a psychologist, very passive role in that he has to interact with people and listen to people more than he actually speaks. And when he speaks, it comes from the authority of his long history in that field. And then Ethan says that he's a bottom because he considers that to be a less masculine role. Now, here's the thing. You could say Ethan is trying to go after the right wing and say, oh, this is what they really believe, but this is a go-to insult for Ethan Klein against people he doesn't like, which would lead me to believe this is actually coming from Ethan's own heart. Ethan is fascinated for some reason with two men doing it and the person who's receiving, and he's fascinated with denigrating the receiver in that scenario. If Ethan were a right-winger and the right-winger were making these jokes, his cancellation would be far worse. YouTube might even remove that episode of the podcast from their platform. But because it's Ethan Klein and because he's on the left, he feels the need to project his insecurities, his weird isms related to the gays onto the right wing because he might actually truly believe that in his soul. Part of the reason we rarely talk about the gays or even the LGBTQ XXIIIPJJXYZ community on this channel is because I don't find them particularly interesting. They're not very unique. Outside of a few circumstances, for instance with the transes where they put biological men in prisons and they end up assaulting the female inmates, or transes in sports and the impact that has against set-asides for biological females, this isn't really something that I spend my time being concerned about. It's not something that I'm interested in. I'm not even that interested in all the weirdos that have TikTok accounts that need to broadcast how absolutely weird they look and how their external weirdness or their internal weirdness matches their external appearance. It's just not something that I do. There are channels out there on the internet.com where they lead off every single episode of their show with the weird transes from TikTok, but I know for a fact that these people are a dime a dozen and they're not fascinating. Up until the point where the thing that people are arguing is violating somebody else's rights, for instance, pronouns in Canada, I'm not really interested in what they do. You can do whatever you want to your body. You can get your surgeries. You can go to the bathroom or whatever. I don't know. You can file joint tax returns. You could play two-way mini golf, table tennis, whatever you're being denied. I'm totally fine with it. Up until the point where you're violating the rights of women due to the set-asides we have for women, or you're endangering women in prison, I don't really care. But Ethan is fascinated with the gays. Much like those obsessive preachers that people used to always play clips of, Ethan is obsessed with how the gays do it. Most of what he's talking about is related to the human buttocks, and it's just weird, and it's just odd. And again, what's weird and odd about it is how this guy's calling Ethan an ally, even though those same things, those same base assumptions, the same obsession of this from somebody who is just right of center would be considered a far more dramatic example of homophobia. Now, the left has become so oversensitive and so insane, they canceled Ethan Klein anyway for this, but it just goes to show you that a lot of these lefties are projecting their issues, their problems out onto the world. And of course, this goes beyond the gays. If you talk to Ethan Klein about Black Americans, he projects his view that they're helpless out onto the world because this is Ethan Klein. This is the left. It's an elitist mentality that leads you to believe that your worst impulses about other people need to be corrected in other people before they're corrected within yourself.
Today we have no sponsors because I am an existential threat to gay rights and all progress. So, of course, our wonderful fans have taken upon themselves to write all of our sponsors and to have them can't not sponsor or not to support us. So
now, since Ethan's cancellation, he made the mistake of course, apologizing to the gays, and now he's trying to do a little have it both ways kind of thing where he mocks everything that he mentions. For instance, I saw him put out a tweet about how British people might be offended by him talking about beans on toast, just to say it's so ridiculous you're attacking me over this, but at the same time, Ethan, you apologize for jokes that you made, and again, you've demanded apologies from other people, you've self-censored in the past, so what did you expect? The only people that are still with you are the people that want to see you burn for all your past sins, the woke mob that you have cultivated and invited into your camp. You should have ignored these people all along. You should have stood up for yourself. You should have had a backbone. You should have been confident enough against accusations of racism and homophobia to stay true to yourself and stand up for what's actually right. You shouldn't have given in. You shouldn't have felt all the guilt for your success and thus projected your need to save and alleviate that guilt onto those you believe to be less fortunate. And by the way, when you do that, you see them as lesser people, lesser men, lesser human beings. You're treating them like children, which is why they're throwing a tantrum. But hey, those are just my thoughts. That's just my opinion. I would love, and I mean absolutely love, to know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Trust me, this is not an empty ploy for engagement on the youtube.com, and specifically answer the provocative questions that I brought up during the course of the video. And if you have an answer and an experience about feminists behind closed doors, let me know if that differs from what I watched in a movie. I don't even remember, in the comments down below of this video. If you like this video, you can show me by leaving a like. You can subscribe for more content. You can follow me on all my social medias. You can support me via the support links down in the description box of this video. Till next time.